The day I got out of the Army, I was already like trying to acquire clients and do that route. Before the Special Forces part, I was actually trying to go to fly helicopters right away in the Army. Man, if I stay in this world, like one, I'm going to be a crappy husband, right? And then two, my kids aren't really going to know me.
So this isn't something that I've ever talked about on this podcast. My best friend died in a car accident when I was 21, and I went down that rabbit hole, like the depression. Once my family found out they have like an intervention, and then I went to a doctor and they prescribed me antidepressant. It was called like Effexor.
So people out there, everybody hates all medication, but it does have a purpose. It does have a time and place.
All right, welcome to another episode of Pinpoint Investor Podcast with Faz and Morsi. I'm excited for my next guest today, Nick O'Kelly. I've known Nick a short period of time, probably only like 6 months. The short period of time that I've known him, I've learned a lot from him. He's been an amazing person and one of the most humble people I know. By far the most interesting guest that I had on. No offense to my previous guest, with your decorated professional background and everything. I'm excited to get into this. So thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me, man. Thanks for the awesome intro. I'm humbled to be here.
All right. And so Nick, I'm going to kind of just start from like the beginning. Like, give me an idea, like, what's been like, well, let's start from the beginning. Like, tell me about like your childhood and like where you're raised and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up in Western Washington, Seattle-ish area. I had family of 6, so pretty busy family. And we lived in a 2-bedroom quadplex until I was in 5th grade. So we literally had 4 kids in one room, like 2 sets of bunk beds on each side, and then my parents in their own room. Yeah, so it was pretty tight. But the interesting part about that is, like, you're a little kid, you don't care. You don't really think about that. You're just playing outside and like doing whatever. Like, I never really thought we were poor or whatever until I look back at that period and I'm like, dang, I can't believe we lived there, I've gone back and like visited the area that I was raised in for that short period, and man, it was rough. It's like, it was pretty eye-opening going back as an adult.
Did you feel?
I did as a kid because I didn't know, like I didn't know better. So I don't remember like ever witnessing anything, nastier. So I think that probably helped too.
Would your parents?
But so my dad worked for GE, so General Electric. He's been in sales his whole life. And the beautiful thing about the story is, in 5th grade, they purchased like I think it was like 2,400 square foot house, in a neighboring suburb, and basically built us out of that life, So it's pretty cool to like see it real time. Yeah. And then so I spent 5th grade through high school there in a small town, went to private high school. So there were 23 kids in my graduating class. I hated it, to be honest. Well, I'll take that back. I hated the fact that I had to leave my friends at public school to go to private school. So basically in 10th grade is when I went to private school. So, but to be honest, it was a really good experience. It was a Christian school, and I got to be like, it was good, like values-based school, I guess. So then after that, I got in, actually, I'll back up. So my parents, how they raised me were like, I was the household that if you got a B or a B plus, you didn't get a pat on the back. You got a what happened, what went wrong type of conversation. So those standards were instilled in me like throughout my life, right? So I always was expected to not just perform, but outperform everybody. But that came with some downsides. So when I graduated and went to college, I had freedom, right? I didn't have my parents forcing me to get good grades, to go to class, to do all these things. So I kind of went off the rails and just started drinking and partying and not going to class at all. Like, I would stay out till 3, 4 a.m. and then wake up at like noon and look at like my schedule for the day and be like, well, I missed class. That sucks. And then I would do that, and a week or two would go by. And then I'm like, I don't even think it's worth going back to class. I think I missed so much, So dude, there was like a whole semester where the only classes I went to were my Army ROTC classes.
Cool.
I didn't go to any of my other classes, and I failed them all. So I think my GPA was like a 1.6 at the end of my freshman year. So long story short, I drop out about halfway into my sophomore year because I got on academic probation. And my dad was like, hey man, I'm not paying for this. I'm not paying another dime for this. So you're either going to figure it out or get a scholarship from ROTC. And I couldn't get the scholarship because I needed a 2.5 GPA. That's how
Really involved with ROTC.
right away. So freshman year, I joined with the intention of getting a full ride scholarship and then becoming an officer in the Army. So but all I needed was a 2.5 GPA, and I couldn't even get, I didn't even have the discipline to get that. So it was pretty wild. So drop out, go back and work for my dad. He actually owned a like Auto Trader style magazine back when there were car magazines in grocery stores and stuff, but it was in Spanish. So it's called El Caro. I have no Spanish accent, so sorry for everybody. But no, dude, he's a big white guy, bald, and speaks fluent like country boy Spanish. It's crazy.
You get to figure that.
Yeah, he grew up in LA, worked in restaurants, and just self-taught / learned it around people he was working with. So it's kind of cool to see that happen real time and then create a business out of it, you know?
What is the earliest like childhood memory of like that magazine or like him like being an entrepreneur?
I still have the first issue of it, which is pretty cool. But I just always, for some reason, because I worked for him for a while, I still just remember driving to car dealerships and just taking pictures of cars. Like that was like my day, my work day was just driving around, taking pictures of new cars and then BSing with the car owners, you know, or the dealership owners, which is an interesting bunch. If you haven't been around them there, it's an interesting group of dudes to spend your day around. But yeah, that was it. And then 08 happened and he had to shut it down, unfortunately. So that was kind of the end of that. But, or 08 started the shutting it down. Sorry. He didn't shut it down in 08.
Right.
So go back home. I worked for him for, I would say I was probably 6 months back home, and I didn't actually stay at my house. I stayed with friends because my parents were like, well, I was pissed at them. They were pissed at me, whatever. And that's when I was like, what am I doing with my life, man? Like I was sleeping on my buddy's dining room floor, basically. Like there was like a little dining room segment that we threw some blackout curtains up, you know, and walled it that was like our walling it off. And that's where I was sleeping. We threw a mattress on the floor and it was just super ghetto. And I was just like, what am I doing with my life? Like, this is not what I want. So that's when I went to the recruiters and basically said, hey, like, I know I'm capable of good things. Like, what do you have? That's awesome. And they showed me the Special Forces recruiting video and like, that was sold, man. I was like, that is the most badass thing I've ever seen. Let's do it.
That's all. How long from the time you went to the recruiter to like the time you went to
it was, so it was a little longer than normal because before the Special Forces part, I was actually trying to go to fly helicopters right away in the Army, but that was a long process and taking a lot longer than I wanted it to. So that's when I pivoted to Special Forces and just enlisting was that. So I would say it was probably a good 9 months. Yeah. And then I signed my contract in February of 2010 and shipped out in July of 2010. So whatever that would be, a 5 month from signing my contract to, hey, you're out of here. Yeah.
And
which was pretty cool.
Yeah. But where did you go for like boot camp and all that?
So I was what's called an 18 X-ray is the MOS, or the military occupational specialty. So that's basically a Special Forces recruit. So all that means is you're an infantryman. So you go to infantry basic, infantry AIT, which is all at Fort Benning, Georgia. And you get the opportunity to try out for Special Forces. So you get the opportunity to go to selection. Because if there's a misconception out there that you're like, I signed up to be Special Forces, that does not mean you're going to be Special Forces. That means you get to try out. So yeah, that's kind of the route I went. So you go to Georgia for basic AIT, which is where you learn how to be an infantryman, and then airborne school right after that as well. So airborne school. And then I went up to Fort Bragg for the special forces to start the special forces training.
How long was your special forces training?
Oh man, that was a year and a half. Yeah, a year and a half.
Nice. That's awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
And then what?
So, and then I went to Okinawa, Japan. So I got orders to first special forces group in Okinawa. And my wife was joining the military she was commissioning as an officer about 6 months after I was shipping out to Okinawa. So we got married the day after I graduated the special forces course is what we call it.
Where did you meet her? Was she on the military as well?
No, she was at East Carolina University in ROTC. So I married up. I married an officer, and that was the best decision ever, obviously. But yeah, but so we had like not a shotgun wedding, but it was like 10 people on the beach. It was like very small, very like intimate, but also very hot. And that's like all people remember is like how hot and miserable it was. But the pictures look good. Yeah, exactly.
And then from there, what'd you do?
Okay, so Okinawa was my first duty station as a Green Beret. That was really cool because I got to travel a ton in Asia. So I think a few months after I arrived in Okinawa, I got to do a backpack trip, deployment, whatever you want to call it. It's like a training deployment. It's not like a combat deployment. So the first leg of it, the first, I think, month and a half, 6 weeks or something, was to Nepal, which was incredible, man. And Nepal is one of the most eye-opening, like, countries from a cultural perspective, like both good and bad, right? Just like there's a lot of dirt, like there's garbage in the rivers and there's a lot of trash and stuff like that. But then there's also a lot of like beauty, ironically. Like we got to go do Everest Base Camp. So we had a 2-week period on the front end of that trip where there was nothing scheduled. And we wrote it off as high altitude training, and the Army paid for us to go do Everest Base Camp. So that was probably like one of the coolest things I've ever done in my life, just having that opportunity.
That's awesome. So did you get to climb Everest, or how'd that work?
So we went to base camp. So it was like a 10-day up trek, whatever you want to call it. And base camp ends up, I think it's like 18,000 feet. I might be butchering that, but it's around there. So it's pretty high, without oxygen. But no, we didn't go further than base camp. Further than base camp is those are the guys that you have to like stay there for months, and like prepare. So we didn't have the time to do that. But that would have been incredible.
Yeah, so what an experience.
Intimidating, but incredible.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah. So then second trip was to the Philippines. That was literally like we got on a plane from Nepal and went straight to the Philippines, didn't even go back home. And that was training the Filipino Scout Rangers, which is a pretty cool experience. I don't really have too much like crazy stuff to happen on that one, but I can just say that like the Filipino Army is amazing. Like they're like our little brothers, and those dudes like have no quit in them. Like they're awesome people. That's about it.
Was your wife with you like throughout this process?
Good question. No, so she wasn't. She was on Okinawa. Okay. So she got orders to Okinawa. So she was back on island while I was out traveling Asia and doing God's work.
How long were you like away from her?
So that one was 4 months. And then later that year, I did another Philippines trip, which was a 2-monther. And then the next year, so 2014, my son was born in March. And mind you, even in between these like deployments and stuff like that or trips, you're still doing like I went to Washington State for jump master school, which was like I think it's a 3-week course. So, and I went to another school in Washington. So like, you're not home, like if you have like a 3-month window or 2-month window where there's nothing on the schedule, like trips wise leaving, like that's getting filled with some sort of training. So you're still, and especially in Okinawa, like there's no schools on Okinawa, right? There's no training there. So you have to go to the States to do anything professional development. So you're constantly gone, man. We were basically getting home like high-fiving our wives and then like looking to what's next, like is nonstop. But 2014, my son was born in March, and I deployed to the Philippines again. This was a combat deployment for 6 months, about 3 weeks after he was born. So so that was like, and that was kind of the nexus of me being like, man, if I stay in this world, like, one, I'm going to be a crappy husband, right? And then two, my kids aren't really going to know me, like, because I saw some of the senior guys in SF, and that's kind of their reality, right? Is their kids are like they're almost like an uncle to their kids, as weird as that sounds, like, because they're just not present, and they can't be, and even if they're good dudes, you're gone so much, and you have to give so much to the job that it's hard to be the kind of dad that I wanted to be, I guess is the way I'll put it.
So like you and your wife, like, you know what you're signing up for, but like you're young, you don't really like quite understand. So like what kind of like mental strain did that like put on like, yourselves and each other? And then like, how did you like deal with that? Because like relationships are hard enough.
Yeah.
It is like, yeah.
No, good question. I had a lot of guilt because I was gone all the time, and because my wife she was still working full time. She had a full-time job and a brand new baby at home who was colic, and like she was doing the single mom thing basically, for a long time. And this continues throughout my military career, So she was a trooper, but it was not easy for her, like I could see it wearing on her and taking a toll on her, which gave me like the guilt. Right. So I was dealing with the guilt, and she was dealing with the stress of literally everything. Fortunately, at this point, there wasn't like any mental health issues, other than just being stressed and, me having guilt, but there was no like depression or anything like that. We were still just trying to survive, in survival mode. And don't get me wrong, like we were having a good time, like when I was home, we were still having fun, and we had a great relationship, but yeah, there was underlying stressors that were happening as well.
When you're on combat deployment, how often are you able to like communicate with her?
Nowadays it's all the time. It's every day, for the most part, unless you're like, there's some jobs that you can't, but for the most part, it's pretty much every day, especially in today's world where there's internet everywhere. It's not like, we weren't living in the woods of Vietnam. It's pretty modern nowadays.
Nice. That's awesome. All right. So after that deployment in Philippines, were you able to like reunite?
Yeah. So that deployment is when I dropped my packet to go fly helicopters. So that could, because of all the things I told you about, the family dynamics and stuff, I was just like, I want to do something that's cool still. I want to do something that's fulfilling, and that has like, another key factor was like, it's a transferable skill when I get out of the Army, right? I can go fly for the airlines or something if I want to. So I dropped my flight packet, and after that deployment, that's when I got like picked up for flight school. And I think I was 6 months after that deployment is when I left for flight school, but I didn't have any other deployments after that one. So it was kind of like I got a little break before I left for flight school. And then, we picked up our bags and shipped off to Fort Rucker, Alabama, which that's a whole podcast in itself. But that place is, I don't even know. Your wife was Naga. So she got orders to Fort Benning, Georgia. Okay. So she was about, I think it was 3 hours away for the first probably 9 months of it. So it was the kind of thing where I got a cheap apartment. She got a cheap apartment. I was just driving there on the weekends, and that's kind of how we navigated that. So yeah, it's kind of crazy to think back at like the first year and a half of my son's life. I was basically not living with him. Yeah. Isn't that weird to think about? Like, yeah, super weird to think about. Thank God, like that didn't have long-term implications, but yeah, it's interesting.
You missed out on all the hard part, but also like,
right.
Or we're like, at that age, like your kids like also like the most fun too,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, trust me, I heard about all the hard parts. I'm like, sorry, what do you want me to do? But yeah, so flight school, moving on to that, it was it was culture shock for me. So for anybody that's not familiar with the military, when you go into like this special operations world, so special forces, Green Berets or whatever, it's very like big boy rules. It's very like, hey, if you don't have anything to do today, like don't be at the office, right? Like it's almost similar to an entrepreneur mindset, right? Where it's like, if you have a task, nobody's going to freaking tell you how to get it done, but they're going to expect you to get it done, right? And if you don't have a task and you're not doing anything productive, like go do something productive, whether it's be home with your family or go to the gym or do something like that. So it's very much like you kind of managed your own life, other than obviously the requirements of trips and stuff like that, right? But so when I got to aviation, it was the complete opposite. It was micromanagement to the core. It was, even if we weren't in like a class for flight school, they would make, so we had nothing to do basically. Like, to just think about it that way. You're basically like think of it as starting a college class in like a week, right? So there's some prep work you could do, right? There's some studying you could do. But these guys, these cadre instructors would make us sit in a classroom from 9 o'clock to 5 p.m. and study for a freaking 8 hours a day, just because they didn't trust us to have the freedom to go home or do whatever. And then that is insane to me. So I came from the opposite end of the spectrum and got thrown back into this micromanagement, just stupid rules. And that was the start of my mental health kind of struggles. Like,
from the Army's perspective, is that just like their way of trying to keep you out of trouble, or?
Yeah, it's their way of accounting for the lowest common denominator. You know what I mean? And it's typically because somebody before screwed something up, and now they're like, okay, we don't want that to happen again, so we're going to make everybody suffer. It's dumb.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense, but for some reason, that's how the military handles a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. And so how long was that period?
So flight school in general was almost 2 years. So it was 2015 to 2017. So almost 2 years. And in between there, my daughter was born. So 2016, my daughter was born. And then, it was just hard charging, man. Just nonstop. Go, go, go.
So you're walking home with a 2-year-old and then a newborn?
I do. Right. I was being forced to do. And so there's even, what's that?
How old were you?
Let's see. That was 2016. So it would have been 27.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and there's even a stigma about, like, if you see somebody's car in the parking lot of behavioral health, like that's how bad it is if you go there. Like, if people drive by the clinic and see your car, like that's like a stain right there, which is nuts, because who knows what you're doing there, right? But anyway, I get in the waiting room and I have to take this like suicide questionnaire. And the questions were like, do you have thoughts of harming yourself? I was like, yes. You have thoughts of harming others? No. Do you have plans to do it? No. Do you want to do it? Do you want these? Whatever. Do you want to do it? No. Things like that. And the clinician takes me back and she reads through it. And I kid you not, she reads through it and is like, okay, based on this, your severity is not like very high. So I think you're good to continue training. And that was it, man. There was no like come back in a week, or like, let's set up a follow-up appointment just to make sure it doesn't get worse. Nothing. So I was just thrown out to the wolves. I will say, in retrospect, it was a blessing in disguise. But in the moment, I was like, wow, like that's how you guys are going to treat somebody who is suicidal? You're just going to tell them, come back if you need me? I'm like, because in my mind, it was a cry for help, like it was me saying, like, I'm terrified that I'm going to do this and I need some help. Not, why would I go there if I could just, I just wanted them to dismiss me type of thing.
Did she do that because she knew the implications of like what it would do to your career? She didn't want to.
I think it's both. I think it was both. I think it was she didn't want to put me in that situation, right? Where, especially when you're in a training pipeline, where I could have potentially gotten kicked out of flight school, because I don't think they would let me continue training if that was what I got grounded for, to be honest.
What would have happened if like you had to stop flight school? Like, would you have been able to go back, or like that's it, like we're done?
Honestly, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't even know. Like, yeah, that's a good question. Especially, like, I don't know if special forces would take me back if that was why.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that was the biggest concern with me.
Would have been
Like, if it was like eyesight or something, you know, that would be a different story. But when it's like mental health, there's just such a stain and stigma around it that I don't think they would be like, yeah, we'll take him. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like mental health, and there's so many unknowns where it's like, you know, you could just be dealing with something temporary, but it's, you know, automatically like, you know, it's permanent, you know?
Well, yeah. And people have this misconception that like, if you're depressed or if you're anxious, like they have this misconception that you should be like in a mental institution. You know what I mean? Like you can be perfectly normal, high functioning, because that's exactly what I was. Nobody knew, you know, I was the distinguished honor grad in my flight school class, even though I was dealing with all that, you know, like, so on paper, I was a freaking stud and I was crushing it. But behind the scenes, I was still dealing with all this. So it doesn't mean like you're crazy, you know, you might think you're crazy because that's kind of what everything's taught us to think, right? But you're not, you know, it's just something you're going through that you just need the tools and need the help to get out of it and get out of that pit. It's not like you're doomed to it forever.
And so when that happened, was it like more isolating, or was it freeing, or like, how did you?
No, it was so much more isolating, because when that happened, that like solidified okay, I'm not going to go get help for this.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to fix this on my own, and I'm going to figure out a way to fix it on my own, which don't recommend, by the way, because that led me to a 5-year period of my life where I was depressed, suicidal, and anxious, like just fighting and surviving every day. So
how did you attempt to deal with it?
Everything, man. I tried all the things that if you Google how to treat anxiety and depression, I tried all of them. Meditation, self-help books, journaling, breath work. What else? Like supplements, like St. John's wort and stuff like that. Tried just regulating my sleep, which, to be fair, that was probably one of the leading culprits of me staying in that, because I turned to alcohol, because alcohol ended up being the only thing that would actually numb it temporarily, and get rid of those thoughts while I was drunk. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I would drink, I mean, probably 4 nights a week at least. And it was bad. It was like half a bottle of bourbon. Like, it was not light drinking. It was drinking to numb my thoughts. But the irony with that is I would do that, and then I'd wake up the next day, and the depression, the anxiety, everything was so much more powerful the next morning, and so much more miserable. Yeah. But then you get to the night and you're so exhausted of it that you're just willing to drink again and willing to numb it again for a little bit. Like, it was a wild cycle, man, that I was on for a long time.
What was the ultimate like fix? Was it when you like stopped drinking, or like? No,
ultimate fix was, so after flight school, I went to Afghanistan, did a deployment there. That was a fine deployment. It wasn't, I don't know, kind of boring, to be honest. But then I came back and I went to the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment. So I tried out to fly for the big boys. And for those that aren't familiar, the 160th we're the guys that fly all the sexy missions. Like, if there's a movie about a sexy Navy SEAL or Delta Force mission, it was probably the 160th flying them. So that's the stuff that we do, like the real cool stuff. So anyways, I get to that unit, and about a year and a half into my time at that unit, I had to get knee surgery, and it was like a 9-month recovery time. So during that 9-month period, that was when I was already not flying. So I was grounded from flying. That's when I gave myself permission to speak up about this stuff. And I went to the flight doc and to be honest though, like the depression had morphed into these dizzy spells. It was like anxiety, panic attacks, basically. But I went in to talk to her and told her this was not like, I didn't tell her this was mental health, right? I didn't say like I was depressed and suicidal before. I just said, hey, I'm having dizzy spells. Like, can we get that checked out? Because I still had the stigmas in my brain of like, I'm not going to say it's mental health. I'm going to try to see if it's something physical first, right? Mm-hmm. So we did head to toe scans and ruled everything out. Like I was healthy as a horse. And that's when I started talking to the psychologist. And once I finally got talking to a psychiatrist and they put me on some anti-anxiety meds because I wasn't flying anyways. So there was no like negative career implications of that. That's when I started seeing improvement. And the interesting thing is I'm not like an advocate for prescription meds, right? Because I do think, especially in the mental health space, they're thrown at people a lot and people become really reliant and dependent on them. But I am an advocate for if you are in the pit and you don't know how to get out, that's the time when medication can be extremely helpful. Like it gave me the space to basically realize what the hell was going on with me, right? So that's what eventually happened is I got on medication and it started helping. Like it didn't fix everything, right? But it started helping enough for me to dig myself out of where I was for so long.
So this isn't something that I've ever talked about on this podcast for sure, but I don't ever talk about it. I had my best friend died in a car accident when I was 21, and I went down that rabbit hole of like the depression and like addiction and everything, and then to get out of it, my once my family found out they had like an intervention, and then I went to a doctor and they prescribed me in a depressant. It was called like Effexor or something like that.
That's what I took for years.
When I got on it, it was like I had no emotions. It was like no highs, no what. Just like I was just cold to the world, and I hated it. And I think I was only on it for like 3 months, and then I just stopped taking it because like I didn't want the highs and I just didn't want to not feel any emotions. I was like, bro, deal with those highs and lows and just deal with it on my own. And like, because I was stubborn enough, I knew like I wasn't going to go back to that as far as like the addiction goes. But yeah, it's a battle, and I didn't talk to anyone about it either. It's definitely life-threatening for sure, but
yeah, man. And I agree with the antidepressants, like making you numb to the world. Like this is getting really personal, but I felt like for a long time, I had like lost the ability to show love. Mm-hmm. As weird as that is, like it was almost like I was going through the motions, and like faking the funk, but deep down I wasn't feeling the emotions that I wanted to, and so yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah. I tried breaking up with my girlfriend multiple times. She's like, this isn't you. She's like, and then I got off it. I was like, okay, I can deal with this on my own.
Yeah, no, I can relate to that 100%, man.
Yes.
So yeah, I think medication is like a great in the moment temporary fix, right? Like it'll give you the space to kind of get yourself out of that.
Agree. Yeah.
And it can save your life. You know what I mean? Like it can. So people out there, everybody hates on medication, but it does have a purpose. It does have a time and place. Just long term, I don't think it's the solution.
Yeah, I felt like it was like when I was on it, it allowed me to get like an outside perspective of like
exactly
and like who I was and where I was going.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly how I describe it too.
Well, yeah, like the pits basically.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, so that eventually led to a medical retirement though.
Wow.
Because I just had so many like different medical things came up while I was getting all those head to toe scans that weren't like crazy, but like I got like, here's an example. I got diagnosed with narcolepsy during a sleep study, and I'm a pilot. So like clearly a pilot can't fly if they're falling asleep at the wheel, right? That eventually got overturned, but there was just so many like complications with all of the Army medical system that it was basically like, all right, you can either not fly and stay in the Army, or you can get medically retired. And I was like, yeah, the peace, I'm out, dude. Like, I was 13 years in at that point. So I was like, I'm done. Like, as long as I can get out with some benefits, I'm good.
Yeah. And so they forced you to retire, but it was like also like amicable, like,
Yeah, it was my decision at the end of the day. Like if I wanted to, I could probably still be in now. I just wouldn't be flying. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do another job. I liked being in the action. I wanted to be at the tip of the spear, if you will.
What year was that you medically retired?
2023. So 2 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, was like your wife supportive of that? Was she done with you?
She was so ready.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was so ready for me to be done. I mean, it brought a lot of uncertainty, right? Just because the military is probably one of the most secure jobs you can have as far as you're getting a paycheck every month, So yeah, that was the curveball. But other than that, yeah, we were excited. We were excited to be able to live where we wanted. She got out in 2017.
Okay.
So she had been out for a while.
Nice.
Yeah.
What did she do after military?
Mom, hardest job in the world, man. Stay at home mom. She's done a little personal training sprinkled in here and there.
Okay.
Like she does it now. She does a part-time job, personal training, but yeah, basically stay at home mom.
Okay. What did life after military look like for you?
Yeah, so we moved to Charlotte, North Carolina. We were in Savannah, Georgia in the Army, so wasn't too far, but we wanted to be a little further north and get out of the super muggy humidity of Georgia. So Charlotte's what we settled on, and I was pretty fortunate to network my way into a financial advisor role right away. So like the day I got out of the Army, I was already like trying to acquire clients and do that route for an independent firm too, which is pretty rare in the financial advising space. Usually you have to go to like a insurance broker first, or, a wire house like a JP Morgan or a Vanguard or something like that first. But I was very, very fortunate to find that job. So I basically started as a 1099 with zero salary and eat what you kill, man. It was scary, but fortunate. Like the good thing is I was able to get all my certifications while I was still in the Army, since I had that, like, I had kind of a 1.5 year window before I got out that I knew I might be getting out. So I started prepping for that, and I knew I wanted to be a financial advisor just because I'd always kind of nerded out on it secretly. Like I'd read all the Dave Ramsey books and listen to all the finance podcasts. And that was just kind of for some reason, I just interested in it. So I'm working for this firm called Sparta Wealth Partners for the first year that I'm out of the Army. And it was a great like starting place. It really was. Like it was an independent firm. So I had the flexibility and freedom to like structure my fees how I wanted to, and really like learn the industry, I guess, as a whole. But after about a year, I met my current business partner, Sean, and he had the idea. He was leaving Northwestern Mutual, and he had the idea for basically a new age financial advising business, if you will, like technology wise and things like that. Like, so yeah, he met with me and showed me kind of the vision of the company. And it was honestly, if I would have started my own firm, like if it would have been all my ideas, it would have looked probably 99% similar. So I was like, yes, let's go. Like, this is exactly what I would do if I started a firm. So it's called Cadence Wealth Partners, and we've been operational for 1.5 years now, and it's been awesome, man. I love every single day of work, which is pretty rare to be able to say that.
Especially like given what we know about your background and like, what you've had to go through to get to where you are. Yeah. That's amazing. If someone wants to hire you as a financial advisor, like hop on a call, how'd they get a hold of you in that regard?
Yeah, cadencewealthpartners.com, or just find me on LinkedIn or Nick O'Kelly. That's the easy way to do it. Okay. Send me a message. Yeah.
Nice. And then I know you mentioned your book pre-order is out now. And
pre-order's live. Yep. Okay. Website is thenickokelly.com. And then there's a Stigma tab that pre-orders will be on.
Okay. Awesome. And then Amazon, all that as well?
Yep. It'll be sold everywhere you can buy books.
Okay. Yeah. I'm excited to read it. I already read an excerpt of it. Thank you, Annie, for sending that to me. And yeah, other than that, anything else? So you want to like your contact info and all that?
No, a website has everything. I do have a YouTube channel, both on the finance side and on the mindset side. So it's really like a mindset motivation, things I've learned from my military career, characteristic traits that I've seen be productive and ones that I've seen be toxic. So it's YouTube at the Nick O'Kelly, but it's all on my website. And then on the finance side at Thrive with Nick, I have a YouTube channel talking about, just money topics that I try to focus on, like lesser known money topics that can help people.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I appreciate you coming on. I think like mental health is not something that is talked about enough, especially among men and like, in this space. So thank you for taking away the stigma. So
yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me, man.
Of course. And again, the Pinpoint Investor Podcast, this is Nick O'Kelly and I'm Faisal. Appreciate you watching. Thanks, guys.